Welcome to the IND podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Donachich. Like, comment, share, subscribe, join our growing international community. Our story today takes us back to Russia, where we're going to once again be discussing President Vladimir Putin, or dictator Vladimir Putin, depending on who you ask. Yesterday, we did a report on how Vladimir Putin's regime has increasingly, over the time since he took power decades ago, increased in its authoritative tendencies. Now, this has been something that has only blossomed since the 3-week-old invasion of Ukraine. Now, today, Vladimir Putin held a very rare rally which he attended in person to bolster support for the invasion of Ukraine. Now, this rally is centered around the 8-year anniversary, which is today, of Russia's 2014 annexation of Crimea in Ukraine. These celebrations, which were held in Moscow and St. Petersburg, mark a day of what is apparently Russian pride for taking back part of its homeland that is actually part of Ukraine, the peninsula of Crimea. Now, this anniversary can't come at a more prevalent time, while Russia is currently undergoing a war with Ukraine inside that country, attacking Kyiv, shelling multiple cities, trying to overthrow the government, and insisting that Ukraine does not join NATO, or, what many people believe, attempting to overthrow the government and institute a pro-Russian plan to essentially Finlandize or fully control the country. Now, our focus is not going to be on Ukraine, though some elements obviously are going to be mentioned. It's impossible to completely avoid this topic while talking about global politics today. But our focus is going to be about Vladimir Putin's speech itself and some recent activities that the president has been undergoing. Now, yesterday we already covered new laws that have been introduced by the Kremlin, introducing up to 15-year prison sentences for anyone criticizing Russia's officially termed special military operation, not an invasion, special military operation in Ukraine. Anyone that even uses the term war can be faced with up to a 15-year prison sentence. Though the reality is most first-time offenders are only charged with a financial crime or a financial penalty. How nice of the Kremlin. Now, in addition to that, thousands of anti-war protesters who have taken to the streets to try and make their voices heard, protesting Russia's actions in Ukraine, have been arrested. At least 7 journalists have been detained in either the past few days or today surrounding the anniversary of Russia's annexation of Crimea and Vladimir Putin's planned rally. Now, these more intensive laws also come across at a time where Russia is becoming the most isolated it's ever been since Soviet times. Many international and multinational companies have left the country because of pressure and support for Ukraine, leaving Russia without some Western institutions that it has gotten used to over the past several decades, most notably McDonald's, but many other Western products, services, and well-known items of everyday Russian life have left the country in a form of sanctions against Russia, its leadership, and its people until the invasion in Ukraine stops. Now, Russia itself has also banned many facets of the internet, completely banning and blocking off websites like Facebook and Twitter, cutting Russians off from inherent social media usages that provides it with free information. Now, Russians do still have access to these websites by using services like VPNs, which pretty much everyone of my generation and younger has gotten accustomed to and used to nowadays. But the reality is Russia has become almost a very large hermit kingdom, a country not unsimilar to North Korea, or at the very least, its half-ally, China. Now, focusing on Vladimir Putin's speech itself. Vladimir Putin only spoke for 5 minutes, which is notably a very short amount of time. Though in these 5 minutes, the man managed to say quite a lot. Now, during his speech, Vladimir Putin invoked Russian history and religion extensively, quoting the Bible more than once. Now, it needs to be understood that history and religion are key and integral parts of Russian society, not just Vladimir Putin's regime, but post-Soviet Russian society. These are fundamental aspects for Russia's image, its self-perception, and a major mainstay in its political arena. It's very difficult to have a political conversation in Russia about any issues without religion or history coming up. Many Russians tend to view things from a historical perspective, and this historical perspective contributes to decisions that impact the future are made. Now, historically speaking, Vladimir Putin frequently invoked Russia's proudest and greatest historical moment, where it defended its motherland in World War II against the forces of Adolf Hitler. This invocation was primarily done by calling Putin's foes in Ukraine as neo-Nazis, calling them a Nazi regime, and stating that if they are not changed, and if the power structure in Ukraine doesn't change, and the nation isn't denazified, a genocide could occur in Ukraine. Now, the vast majority of world leaders, media companies, pretty much anyone that understands anything about this situation knows that that claim is complete bullshit. Ukraine is not a Nazi country. However, it is understandable for Vladimir Putin to use this terminology as it brings back the proudest moment in Russian history and makes gaining support for his military actions in Ukraine much, much easier. Understand that in Russia, as I just mentioned, history and religion are two fundamental aspects of political and general life in the country, which means that the people can easily be manipulated through history and religion. Religiously, Vladimir Putin quoted the Bible at several times during his speech, saying that the soldiers in Ukraine, the Russian soldiers in Ukraine, were giving a brave service, that, paraphrasing the Bible, that there is nothing braver or more courageous or more loving than to give one's life for one's brother, stating that Russian soldiers are giving their lives for one another to act on Russia's interest. Now, in addition to the historical and religious undertones, the most major guest at this rally, besides Vladimir Putin himself, was extreme Russian patriotism. The event, the entire rally itself, was covered in Russian flags, going from pretty much every other person. And wildly patriotic songs were played on repeat or performed during this rally, which is nothing strange. This happens in every single country and every single political rally. Patriotic undertones are used. They are a very easy way to get support and get votes. But what is very, very disturbing is one song called Made in the USSR was performed. Now, what is disturbing about this song is not just its former Soviet undertones and the fact that the Soviet Union was not a democracy, something that everyone accepts, but also the territorial ambitions that are present in the lyrics of the song, which the lyrics state, Moldova, Ukraine, Belarus, all parts of my homeland. Very clearly stating that Russia has territorial ambitions towards Moldova, Ukraine, and Belarus. Now, it needs to be stated, and I completely understand that you can't take a song and say, okay, this is a statement of Russia's foreign policy goals and interests. But what needs to be understood, especially by my Western, non-Russian audience, is Russia, like many other Slavic nations, is a nation of symbols. Symbolism is undescribably, infinitely important to sending a message and carrying out one's goals. This kind of symbolism and these kind of lyrics being present in a rally attended by Vladimir Putin, which, keep in mind, public appearances by Vladimir Putin have become extremely rare over the past few years, sends the clearest of messages that Russia's foreign policy intention is to make Ukraine theirs. Now, the final thing that I want to comment on is just how rare this kind of rally is. This is actually going to help everyone watching this understand the kind of message that Putin is trying to send. Ever since the coronavirus pandemic, Vladimir Putin's public appearances have become extremely and exceedingly rare. Following the invasion of Ukraine, they've become almost non-existent. Vladimir Putin has been addressing his people, addressing the public and the international community through video addresses that are probably filmed inside some kind of bunker. Additionally, Vladimir Putin rarely meets with other people in person, be they world leaders or his internal and closest staff. When he does meet with people, it's either over some kind of video conference or when, in the very rare instance, the meeting is in person. A ridiculously long table separating Putin from his guests is used. Many people have contributed this to some form of paranoia. Others have stated that Vladimir Putin is just trying to stay safe from the COVID-19 virus. Other theories, though at this point, these theories don't really have much evidence and might as well be conspiracy theories, state that Vladimir Putin is hiding some kind of extreme illness. No matter what the case is, we can't get into the mind of Putin, but it does seem that the man has been intentionally isolating himself. Coming out into such a massive rally, even though his speech was very short, only 5 minutes long, shows that Putin is ready to be very extensively and extremely politically active again, and that he is using a rare appearance to gain the support of the Russian people. Now, finally, to fully understand the implications of this rally, what needs to be understood is the context. Yes, the war in Ukraine is still occurring. Yes, Russian missile bombardments and shelling have never been worse, even striking very close to the city center of Lviv, the western city in Ukraine, which has not seen much shelling, bombardment, or fighting throughout the entire war, and has essentially been used as a hub between Ukraine and the rest of the Western world that is at peace. Journalists, humanitarian aid groups, and people just trying to get into the country to help are all inside Lviv. It is a major logistical center. Missile strikes on that city are rare. It seems that the war is expanding, and in places where it's already been occurring, such as Kiev and Mariupol, fighting has gotten even worse, with ground combat increasing in its intensity and Russian bombardments becoming even more frequent. Now, Russian forces continue to be completely stalled, with the Ukrainian surprise resistance and its surprise efficiency continuing to persist and hold back the Russian soldiers. Now, despite this continued fighting that is increasing in its fervor, peace talks have also seemed to be, at the very least publicly from what we know, very productive. Both sides, Russian and Ukrainian, seem to be finding more and more common ground, with some kind of negotiation coming closer and closer. We've covered these peace talks before. We're not going to go into too much detail, but basically what they encompass is some form of Ukrainian neutrality on the international stage. Neutral military for the country, Ukraine dropping its bid to ever join the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and major security concessions and guarantees from Russia and the rest of the West. Now, it would also obviously mean a complete ceasefire and withdrawal of Russian soldiers. Whether or not this agreement is going to be had very soon, only time will tell, but it does seem that one is relatively close. So Putin's rally is not really centered around Ukraine. It's centered around gaining domestic support. It seems that Putin's entire expedition into the country of Ukraine, or what has essentially been an unprovoked and shameful war, has just been a ploy to increase his powers by introducing more and more draconian laws and authoritative measures, while also gaining public support through patriotism, religion, and history. I do personally believe that an end to the Russo-Ukrainian war, at the very least this invasion, is going to come relatively soon, maybe within a month. But the end of Russia's dictatorship is just beginning. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if I'm being too optimistic or too pessimistic. Let me know what you think about Vladimir Putin. Pretty much anything that's on your mind, lay it out in the comments. Let's have a nice open discussion. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next week.